So I sat here and watched the sun set into that region of the sky that lit up everything around me in that dull glow. It was Friday, the time was about 4:05 in the evening over 2,000 years ago. Right around that time, Roman soldiers would be taunting me. A man in the crowd would yell, "If you're really the Son of God, then why don't you come down from there and stop all this madness?" My mother and my youngest brothers would be there in the distance, crying. Then the man with the spear would come before the sun set completely on the horizon. Then a few hours later, as the sunlight dwindled almost completely, the Son of God died. He awoke from the blood-lost slumber the man who pierced his side had caused. His hand that they tried to put the nail into no longer throbbed, and his wrists were tied with the thorn bush vines that they made his crown from that mocked him further. As he drew his last breaths, knowing the end was coming, his mind drifted to his friends who stood by his side for years and always had kind words for him as he struggled to understand mankind and the evils that blinded them to happiness. All that they sought was right there in their grasp had they only the sense to put down their desire for a greater purpose. His mind reeled in grief. Where were his friends now? Won't someone save him now? No, he said to himself. I must not dwell on such thoughts and remember they are my friends and good people, and this is my fate. It has always been my fate. His breathing began to burden him with every breath. Not long now. Soon I should see the Spirit of my Father appear to take me into the promised land of the Mushal. He then began to panic in his mind. But where is he? Why is my father not here yet? Have I done something to anger my forefathers? In panic he yelled out with the last of his energy, thinking he had made a mistake somewhere. Is he forsaken by his ancestors? Father, why have you forsaken me? Then he thought to himself, will I not be taken to the lands where my ancestors dwell, to the lands of the prophets with the God of Abraham? As he looked around he tried to say something else, but a great darkness was pulling him away. Where was his God had he abandoned him to? And all went black as the last thoughts ran through the Son of Man's head. This feeling of abandonment. A God who was not there when I needed him. It is a familiar feeling. This is not the first time I have felt this way. And memories of another life came rushing into his thoughts. Quickly they played out the life of a boy who had died but was sent back, by what seemed to be him, denied death and returned to live a life of grief and sorrow, only to die feeling the same feeling as he did then. Abandoned, rejected, and another feeling that had been forgotten from another similar time, a deep feeling of mistrust for the one they call God. This was the core of his feelings and inability to trust God. A blur of haze as the darkness gave way to a shimmering light. A dove came swooping into the darkness and his spirit was pulled with intense force. And the haze appeared again as a bright light burst forth from his chest and he shot forth across the desert towards the palace of the Emperor of Rome. Then the world ahead of him began to streak with bright light as he shot across the marble floor, trying to take Caesar with him as it all smeared together into a brightness. Then he spilled out onto a desert floor. It was not any desert he knew, and the sand even looked strange. The colors were off. But as he stood he saw he was in front of a small house. He knew this house. It was the house of Judas. He quickly remembered what he heard Pontius Pilate talking about with the man who stood silently in the shadows of a corner whispering about someone he wanted killed so that no one but him could tell Caesar the truth, his version of the truth. He saw that Jesus was listening, and when they were done he whispered to Jesus as he walked by, I will personally make sure that everyone blames your people for the judgment of your execution. That is what shall be written in the records of history, and that is all anyone will know, even Caesar. He had to warn Judas, but as he got inside he saw that it was too late. In front of the house, by the tree, hanging from its branches, was Judas, and at his feet was a bag of dinars and a man riding away. Jesus chased after the man and caught up with him. This man was Saul, and he was the one who killed Judas Iscariot and made it look like he killed himself. And that is why he encountered Jesus after the crucifixion. He was trying to stop Saul from escaping. This realization has sent my focus on the vague memory off center, and I will try to remember more later, but I'm too upset as the residual emotions still. Okay, now I can continue. Next thing I remember was waking up within a stone room, dark and cold, and the soft but trembling voice of God telling me to be calm. He was wondering what was taking his angels so long. Then I heard the sound of stones scraping stone, and two slender-like men with pale skin came in. They had larger than normal eyes that were black with no pupil. Something was strange about them. Then there was a glowing luminous being that appeared before me and said, "Stay calm, son. I must ask you something. If you return to them, you must not be angry with them." I sat there and thought about it as all the events unfolded of what was to come. More memories from that other life were getting longer and more detailed. He knew about the Crusades and the persecutions of the Dark Ages, and he said, even after all they have done, that they will do in my name. God then said, "We must hurry, sunrise will be soon and the change of the guard will be here any minute." Now here is the unclear part. I am not sure whether this conversation occurred as I remember it, or if it was Mary and the other apostles who had come in the early dawn hours on the third day after I died, and I was hearing an echo of their conversation they were having over my body, and that was what I perceived in death.